Today is March 8th, which means we are celebrating International Women's Day, a day we embrace women throughout history and around the globe. I think every day should be International Women's Day, but it's officially today. While Silicon Valley takes pride in its progressive views on many cultural issues when it comes to diversity, progress in tech has been slow. We are sitting here with two women who have made a huge impact on the tech sector and have much to say about how we can improve it. Patty McCord is the author of Powerful, Building a Culture of Freedom and Responsibility, and spent 14 years at Netflix, where she was Chief Talent Officer. Minnie Ingersoll is also with us. She is COO at Code for America, co-founder of Shift, and a former executive at Google. Thank you both for being here today.
Us.
Yes, yeah. Yay us. So women, as I mentioned, are still vastly underrepresented in the tech industry. Twitter, interestingly, has set a new goal to hit women accounting for 43% of its workforce by 2019. Of course, it's still not 50%. But let's talk about how more companies get there. And I know there are a lot of things at play here, but Patty, what is the number one thing companies need to do?
They need to own it, not have it be an HR issue. So, I was talking to an engineering friend of mine, and he said, "You'd be so proud of me. We have 3 women on our executive team." And I said, "How many women are on your how many people on your executive team?" He said, 12. I said, "You have a PhD in math. What's equal mean to you?" I'm thinking it's 50%, which is not 3. Great math for me. So part of it is to actually look for achieving parity, because that's what we want, and not be satisfied with some progress. And then it's hard work. And so bringing people into the field is everybody's job. It's not the recruiter's job. The job of great management is to build amazing teams that get great work done on time. So go find amazing people.
Minnie, you've seen this from the perspective of a huge company like Google. You've seen this from an entrepreneur's perspective, trying to raise money. What's wrong? Because it's not only that it's not getting better, it's just been so bad for a long time, and in some places it's actually gotten worse.
Sure, I think that if we just focus on recruiting, we're really missing the core of the issue, which is actually how do decisions get made within these big companies? How does Sand Hill Road make decisions? And actually, if what we're looking at is you come to the table for an hour to argue for your ideas, and you have to pitch with confidence, and that's how we decide how resources are allocated, that might not be actually creating the inclusive culture we want. So I think it's much more than just recruiting. It's actually building the cultures that attract people and then have people want to stay.
Do you think, Patty, that this needs to come from the CEO, that the CEO needs to make this an explicit priority? I mean, obviously everybody needs to work on it, but it certainly can't be just happening or motivated by one part of the organization.
Yeah, and it's I want to avoid the extremes, right? It's the CEO or it's HR, right? Well, there's everybody in the middle, and in a case like Google, that's 200,000 people. So it should come from everybody, certainly everybody in management. And so the more that people can see managers engaged in promoting women from within, making sure that the pipeline has women represented in it, being aware of these kind of issues, talking about it. I think I told you earlier about someone who called me and said, "Oh, the Silicon Valley thing, they must be just worried that all their employees have gone rogue and go to the internet to complain." I said, "Go rogue? You mean use social media like we all do?" And the reason why people go rogue is they don't have anybody they feel like is listening to them. So to me, there's 2 really important pieces. The first one is, yes, talking about parity, 50-50. And the second one is listening to people's real stories. Because that builds trust, right? And then people feel like they're in it together. So it's not the CEO's job, and it's not the HR person's job, it's all of us.
Minnie, I'm curious about Google in particular because, I just wrote a whole book about this issue, and there's a whole chapter on Google and how Larry and Sergey, the founders of Google, really cared about this and focused on hiring women, and then sort of dropped the ball, and the numbers at Google are now fairly average. And at the same time, this is a company that's facing lawsuits from both sides, from women who say they're not getting paid enough, and from white men who say they're being discriminated against. What's happening here?
Well, I think there is some of what I was talking about before. It's just a hard situation, right? There is you can't win on both sides of that. But I do think that this is what I was talking about. I go to Google product strategy was where you'd go and you'd pitch your idea, and we really need to understand how to get everyone's voices voices included, so that we're listening when someone's not speaking up, when they're not voicing their idea, and we're creating a structure there. That I think Google has done all the low-hanging fruit. I guess that's a lot of the low-hanging fruit, which is like we have nursing rooms and we've got generous leave policies. But I think we need to take it to the next level of how are we actually making decisions.
Patty, you're nodding.
I'm thinking about a story I wanted to tell you since we met last. Remember, I hadn't read Brotopia. You gave me the book, and as we walked out the door, you said to me, don't you think it's terrible that Apple has this glorious campus but doesn't have daycare in it? And my HR brain kicked into reptile gear, and I said to you, oh, Emily, that's really difficult to do because we have liability issues in their facility. That can't be done. It's really too hard. It's too hard. It's too hard, right? I don't know where this voice comes from, but apparently it's still there. The next day I go to Texas. I'm in this meeting, and Dean Carter, who's the head of HR at Patagonia, is there, and he says, today we hired as an intern someone we met at 8 weeks old in our daycare center. Right, and Patagonia for decades, right? And all of a sudden, like scales fell from my eyes, and I thought, oh, for God's sake, we can hire a bartender and put them on payroll
and allow people to bring their dogs.
And we can figure out how to help families be productive at work. And so, a lot of this is really important that we talk about words about how an inclusive workforce makes us all feel better, right? It makes us all feel included. I'm not that sympathetic, partly because we've been screaming for decades and no one ever did front page headlines. And so, there's plenty to worry about other than the fact that we're discriminating against white men at work. I think that case is going to be pretty hard to make.
So we have only a minute left. I know we could talk about this for hours, but this gets to the idea of retention, and I know that you hate that word, retention, but it's how do we create cultures that are, but it's not just about hiring, it's about keeping women once they get there and making sure that they're progressing.
Well, one thing we have to do is celebrate, right? It's actually great to be female in Silicon Valley and have a degree in computer science. There are issues, obviously. We've heard about the harassment, we've heard about discrimination, but also being female and having a degree in computer science, I get asked to be an advisor to companies. I get to be asked to do speaking engagements. I get to be on boards. It actually does allow you to interact with engineers and have a seat at the table. So I do think we need to keep encouraging women and celebrating the success.
Oh, me too. And I think it's not about retention. It's about progression. It's about making sure that people get opportunities and that we're celebrating the people that are in front of us every day. Right? It's not about always reaching to the outside to find that next great candidate. It's looking inside, making sure that we're all getting the same opportunities, that we're all being listened to, and that we celebrate the great progress that we can make.